Today we're here with my friend Matt Padgett, who is the owner of Keystone Mortgage, and we have a great conversation about some of his experiences as an endurance athlete and the parallels with your journey as an entrepreneur. So, Matt, I thought maybe you could share what are some ways that you stand out from your competition, or some of the ways that your firm's different?
Sure. Robert, when I started this company 17 years ago, we did it to give a better option both to the people that we were serving, the clients, and also the partners that we worked with. And what we've been able to do over 17 years, and the reason we've seen such growth, is because I can tell someone, I say, don't work with me until I've given you value. But once I have given you some value, let's work together to help more clients and each other. And I focus pretty much 100% of my time on bringing value to our employees, to our partners, and then ultimately to our clients.
Excellent.
And I do that by really helping a realtor go from a one-person show to creating systems and processes to create a business. Mm-hmm. And I think I really think there's magic in business, and I love to talk about it with people and help them create what they want to have.
Excellent. Well, without further ado, we will jump into our conversation here. We hope you enjoy. Well, thank you for coming here today, Matt. And for our audience, Matt is the owner of Keystone Mortgage. Mm-hmm. And we're just really excited for having you in our studio and getting to know you better and learning what you can share with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Robert.
Of course. Well, I'd like to start, if you don't mind, just with your story, how you got into the mortgage business. And, it's interesting where your primary practice has been Tennessee.
Correct.
You're really opening some operations in Florida in a big way right now. So, tell us how you got started.
My background is after playing college basketball and getting my MBA, I went to live in Atlanta and work for PricewaterhouseCoopers. And that was an opportunity to work for a big firm with a lot of smart people and learn a ton. And I was in the business consulting or middle market division at PwC. And after leaving there and moving back to Knoxville, I started buying some residential rental properties for personal rental. And I noticed that the mortgage companies and the banks that I was talking to, first of all, did not give me the level of service that I expected, but then they really also didn't know what they were doing. So I said, the people of, at that time, East Tennessee deserve something better, and I'm going to start a mortgage company, and I'm going to help them. Yeah. And that's exactly what I did. I left a really good career to start a mortgage company to help the people at that time of East Tennessee. And for 17 years in a row, we grew the business. And we made the Inc. 5000 for the last 2 years in a row as one of the fastest growing private companies in America. And I was coming to Florida a bunch to visit my brother, who his family has been here 6 or 7 years now, but we were coming down a lot. And I said, you know what? I think the people of Florida could also use a company like Keystone Mortgage, a company that truly cares about them and their family.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And we've spoken in, offline about some just general entrepreneurial concepts and things. Mm-hmm. I'd be curious if anything comes to mind. I mean, when you decided to start a business, was that as easy as you expected for it to be, or were there some bumps along the road?
So,
over the course of 17 years, there's been a lot of different market cycles. And
Absolutely. So I opened the doors February 1st, 2006.
All right.
And some people say the timing couldn't be worse. I say it couldn't be better, and here's why. When I knew in 2007 that things were going really bad in the financial markets, mm-hmm. Some of the largest companies that we had all heard about were going out of business overnight, and I had always heard that many of the Fortune 500 were started during recessions. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, the timing wasn't the greatest on starting this business in a boom market, but during when so many of my competition is going out of business in 08, 09, 10, I was still small and nimble enough that we could ride the wave. And we were so flexible that I actually went and took a consulting job during the weekdays to fund our company, and I would come and work on the nights and the weekends to keep us going.
I see.
And I did that for a few years, funded the company, kept us growing, kept hiring employees. And then when we came out in, let's just call it 11, 12, we had so much more market share than our competition, who only stays in the market during the good times. So yeah, we've been through some ups and downs, and I would say as a country, probably over the last 8 months, we've been in somewhat of a real estate recession.
Correct,
with rates going up, with the craziness that we had during COVID and the buying sprees and everybody moving. And we've handled that wonderfully and continue to grow and doing things down here in Florida. So, I mean, there's been bumps in the road for sure. Everything always takes longer than you expect. It costs more than you expect.
Yes.
But, I think if you have the systems and processes in place and then just plug the right people in those spaces, then you're going to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'd love to get into that a little bit more as far as like rhythm and things. But I love that story because the timing of when you started your business was a relatively adverse time, and we have some realtors that are within our company and otherwise that are feeling a little bit uneasy maybe right now that there could be some adversity ahead and wondering if this is the right time to begin a career in real estate. And I think that your story is a perfect example how it's all how you decide to interpret the things that are going on around you, that you could see it as a challenge that's insurmountable, or you could see it as an opportunity to be able to gain market share in a time that would be otherwise more difficult to do. So I mean, it certainly can be beneficial to enter the market in a time like we're facing right now. And locally here, things are still relatively good, but I'd be curious maybe with some of your exposure to other markets, some of the things that you're seeing, for example, in the market areas in Tennessee that you're in or otherwise, because some of our agents, they don't realize how good that we've got it here right now in comparison. So.
Absolutely, and there's definitely more activity. Obviously, we're coming out of the busier season, or at the end of the busier season down here, or somewhere in that busier season. And you different down here too is you do have cash buyers, and you do have people moving from other areas who have sold their properties and moving here to retire or get a second home or whatever. What we've seen in Tennessee and some people that I've talked to around the country is when there was a huge boom during COVID and throughout COVID with people moving, people working from home. We have so many people who move from Manhattan or Chicago still working for the same companies, but they're sitting in East Tennessee making the same salary, but doing the work there. So obviously the price of living is a lot better and or a lot lower. So with the rates going up, with so many new people coming into the area or people buying, prices have risen. I think one thing we're seeing generally in Tennessee and in Florida, there's just not enough inventory for the number of people who want to buy a home. Typically in a different market with rates this high, you would see a lot of people, a lot more houses on the market, a lot more properties on the market, and the prices would not be going up still at the rate that I think we're seeing in Tennessee and Florida generally because of the low inventory.
Correct.
But we also have a catch-22 there where it's like, okay, somebody bought a home 3 years ago, they have a 4% rate. They are very reluctant to sell that home now and go to a 6% rate on the new home they would buy.
Correct.
So there are a lot of people who are kind of holding on to see where this goes. Now, I don't think we're going to see rates where we did a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I don't think we should see rates that low again. But there's going to have to be a point where sellers understand that rates aren't going back to 3%. If you need to move, if you're getting married, if you're, having another child, you're going to have to go ahead and bite the bullet and move.
That's right.
And I think it's taken the last 6 months or so, nationally and in Tennessee as well, for people to realize that, hey, you're just going to have to do it if you need to do it. This is not the time to, try to make an extra whatever out of your home. There's just not enough inventory out there to do that.
That's right. And that's very much the case here in Florida as well. And you can watch the migratory patterns, and builders are obviously following this strongly and building in these markets where people are still moving to. And, a lot of the usual suspects are still benefiting from that. Of course, Florida being one of the main benefactors from these different patterns. But it will be interesting to see where this all leads, because, here we are in April 2023, and there's a lot of wonderment of how the Fed may pivot and start to ease rates again, or if they're going to stay committed to this path of trying to stop inflation, which seems like what they've done so far, it seems to be relatively effective. But time will tell. We'll find out.
And one thing I think we see kind of in times like this, and what I've seen throughout my career, is real estate is 6 to 9 months ahead of the general economy, or the numbers that are coming out on the general economy. So generally, real estate nationally, say we saw somewhat of a recession starting last June, July. Now the economy, based off the last news we've been hearing, is also starting to see that. So we're 6 to 9 months ahead of the general economy in real estate. But I also think we come back 6 months before the numbers in the economy come back.
True.
So it's not like real estate, we've already been through a portion of our recession, and now we will be coming out of it, I think, before the general economy does.
Yeah, I would agree. So one thing I think that would be really beneficial for our audience, which is really primarily composed of like real estate professionals, is we've had some great conversations about, in your personal life, you've got some interesting things that you're involved in. I don't know if it's if it's something that is that was just innate to how you came about finding the sport of like being an endurance athlete and doing some of these things that are a little bit crazy, for lack of a better word.
Some people call me crazy.
But I'd love to learn more about that, how you got involved in that, what was appealing about that. I know you're an athlete in college as a basketball player, so tell us a little bit more about that.
So I like to read. I like to study people. I like to find people who are successful at something, and then study how they did that. And I have kind of always been into running or hiking and just being outdoors. And I started following some people and reading about some people, and they started talking about these endurance sports, whether this was running, whether this was cycling. And what I found is when an endurance sport really is doing one thing, and that's overcoming your mindset, overcoming the things that hold people back. Because I learned that if I could control my mind, then I could control my life and the success and the results. So I'm a firm believer that, you decide you want to do something, you put together the plan, and then you take massive action and you start doing it. And with endurance sports, whether it's a 50-mile race in the mountains, or a cycling, an 1,100-mile cycling event over 10 days, your mind is what is the difference between being able to do it and not being able to do it. Obviously, you have to train and get your body in shape. But David Goggins, who I follow and read his stuff, he said that once your body says you can't go any further, you're really only 40% of the way there.
Wow.
So there's another 60% still to go, and that's when the mind kicks in. And in the endurance sports, I just know that if I can keep putting one foot in front of the other, and if I can keep making progress towards the finish line in that race, that I can also do that in my life, and I can help other people do that as well, and build a team who wants to do the same thing. So endurance is all about mental. It's everybody says physical, and oh, that's crazy to, run the Pikes Peak Marathon and go up 8,500 feet in vertical gain to 14,115 feet in the first half marathon. And it's like, yeah, but you just got to keep going. And
wow.
So it's just all about making sure your mind is strong enough to fight through when stuff gets tough.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so about how old were you? Do you recall when you started getting involved in these endurance competitions?
I actually a little older, so I'm 48 now, and I started getting into the endurance stuff about when I was 37.
Is that right?
Now, I'd run some marathons or done a bunch of half marathons and hiked a bunch, but as far as getting into the true endurance where you're going for 8, 9, 10, 12, 19 hours at a time, that it's probably 10, 11, 12 years ago.
That's incredible. And I myself have never participated in anything like that whatsoever. So I'm just in absolute awe and disbelief that that anybody can do that. But
yeah, it's hard to explain how it's a mental game.
Yeah.
It sounds so physical, and yes, you're sore, and yes, but once you hit that finish line, it makes it all worth it because you fought through something that was not easy.
Right. Yeah, that is incredibly inspiring for me to hear. I don't know if I am curious enough to actually dabble in it myself,
right.
But time will tell. We'll find out.
Right.
But what I think the great parallel is that I'd love to get your opinion on is if there's some commonalities with the mindset of being an endurance athlete with being an effective entrepreneur. Would you say there's some similar lessons to be learned there?
Absolutely. I mean, and you know this well from your own life, but it's all about persistence. You just keep going. I think so many times businesses fail because people quit too soon. And they weren't willing to take the actions necessary to endure. So I think it's there is probably way too many similarities in business and endurance sports, and maybe that's one of the reasons that I was drawn to endurance sports as well. Is because it's really just a process. It's really just a system. The only difference in endurance sports is it's just me. Right? Business is probably or is way more difficult because you're working with teammates and employees and partners and different people.
Right.
Endurance, it's, hey, I can overcome this, and all you really have to count on is you. But taking the lessons that you've learned in business, I've learned it in business, in endurance sports, they're very similar, where I can take those lessons and teach them to other people, whether they're friends, partners, employees, and they can gain from my experiences.
Right.
And that's why I also love to read and learn from other people is I love to learn from their experience, but then I love to pass it on to someone else. Yeah. Because I believe the world is a win-win. I believe as long as both people can win, then you're creating what's known as community. Sure. And I think by creating community, you can do really great things. Yeah, I love that philosophy. I totally agree. Is there like maybe a story that comes to mind of like one of the heaviest experiences you went through in any of these races, or just there's quite a few of them. So my first 50-mile race, which was actually 52 miles. These trail people aren't real good with distance sometimes.
Well, it's another mile or two.
Right. I was. It was about 10 o'clock at night. It was dark. I was about 41, 42 miles in, and at this point of a race, your body's hurting, your feet are hurting, your feet feel like they've been through a meat grinder, and I'm out by myself. You can stretch, several hundred people over 50 miles, and for probably 80% of the race, there was no one else around me. Wow. But my feet were really hurting, and, you can feel the pressure under your toenails of the blisters that are, coming up and stuff. And I went over a route, and I kicked the root with my foot and literally almost passed out with pain because of the blisters under my toenails that I had after this race. So I'm laying in the woods, don't care about bears, don't care about it, and I'm like, can I get up and get to this finish line? So, I have like 9-10 miles left, and luckily I come out of the woods at about mile 48, and we know that during the last mile, there's this hill that's straight up, and people just talk about this hill forever. But at mile 48, there was the last aid station, and they had Coca-Cola. Now, I typically don't, drink soft drinks, but I had to have some of this Coca-Cola, and that was a wonder drug. It totally changed my spirit. It gave me energy, the sugar in it, the caffeine. And I got to the bottom of this hill with about a mile to go, and you literally have to just power hike this hill. But there was collateral damage all over this hill with people just laying on the hill who could not get up at the end. So it was... and that's just the first race. This is just the first endurance race I ever did.
Is that right?
There's so many more stories, and obviously I love sharing them. And
you did finish that.
I did finish.
Wow.
I did finish. I finished about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. That's incredible. So are there any? I think there's a lot of parallels that come to mind with business. I can definitely recall some more difficult seasons than others, but maybe in your journey, are there any examples that come to mind, like on your entrepreneurial path that you had? You faced some adversity, then you had to persevere, push through, maybe come up with a different plan.
Let me just draw a parallel again to, athletics of any type. But for instance, I'll be sitting with someone and they say, I would like to run a marathon. And I say, get your phone out. We're going to sign up for this marathon right now. So just like business, let me just take you through this for a second. We have to have an end goal in mind. Right. We have to know where we want to be. Like, you need to know where your company, I need to know where my company is going to be at the end of 2023. We need to know where we want to be in 3 years and 5 years. So I say sign up. So we sit there over coffee or whatever, and they sign up for that race. And then I say, okay, say that race is in 6 months. In 3 months, you need to be here. In order to be at that 6-month mark, you need to be here at that 3-month mark. And then I say, hey, you need to be here at that month mark. And then we break down into daily activities that this person can do: fueling, training, sleeping, making sure you're hydrated. And they do the massive action that's necessary to get them there. And through this process of daily massive action, they are building the mental fortitude to be able to complete that race when it's done. Because the hardest thing about, and anyone who does any exercise knows this, the hardest thing every time is just getting out the front door.
Right.
Once you've gotten out the front door, you've pretty much won. So it's very much like business. We need to know where we're going to be. We need to have checkpoints along the way. And then we need to break down the activities that we need to do every day. And if done over time, those will add up to the result you wanted.
Right.
And I think a lot of people don't have that focus in a work environment. And when you don't have that focus, you're missing out because you're not doing that actions that needed to be done to get to that result.
Right.
And I think that's.
Yeah. Well, I know as a lender, you partner with your realtors that you work with regularly, and you try to incite or encourage them to have better results. And so, if there's things that come to mind, maybe to share, some of those actions and things. I know probably the analogy for, getting out the front door to begin your workout, I think in your path as a realtor or entrepreneur, probably the equivalent would be, the hardest thing about the journey would be picking up the phone and making the first call.
Absolutely.
And then once you do that, then you can reinforce patterns and start to, create better habits. But, maybe are there some things that you find regularly when you're helping realtors that you partner up with to be more effective that you encourage them to do? Or
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of them. But, I think the first thing you have to do is what separates most people in this world from others is hunger. Mm-hmm. You have to be hungry and want a result. And I think hunger comes from excitement and energy. And every person that I work with at our company, we have three core principles or core values, and it's love people and treat them well, super energy and happiness, and constant growth and ownership. And we actually rate each other on these.
Yeah, go. I'm sorry, pause and go through those again quickly. I want to make sure we don't gloss over that too quickly.
Love people and treat them well.
Okay.
Constant growth and ownership, mm-hmm. and super energy and happiness.
Love that.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And that's how we hire people. That's how we fire people. Those are our metrics mm-hmm. for what we judge people on. So I believe energy. If you bring energy to your life, that's contagious. Mm-hmm. And if you have the energy and the hunger to do what's necessary to get the results, then you're going to draw people to you that can benefit you, but you can also benefit their life.
Right.
And what I found is like when I meet with someone for the first time, I try to understand what their needs are. Mm-hmm. Where are they in their life? Where are they in their business? And through a series of questions that I ask, I can understand what their pains and pleasures are. Mm. And it could be totally different from one person to the next.
Sure, will be.
But I can't sit there and tell them what they need without understanding what they need. Mm-hmm. So when I talk with someone and understand what they need, then I can actually help them in a way that they need to be helped. And I think in business, a lot of people are selling something to someone without understanding what those people need. Mm. So I think if we were to sit back, understand what people need, and then help them how they need to be helped, I also think that's contagious because those people will tell others
sure.
how you help them, and then you're so much better than just that person who's selling something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are there any characteristics or traits of people in real estate specifically? Again, that's our primary audience. Mm-hmm. And I know that they'll definitely be enjoying this conversation if maybe there's some commonalities that you find or attributes of highly effective or successful, productive realtors versus, the ones that haven't quite found that rhythm so far.
Absolutely. And I think some people learn this quickly, and I think for people who become successful, it takes some a long time to learn this. So I think the quicker you can learn this, the better off you're going to be. Surrender to the process. Mm-hmm. This has been done for a long time. People have sold real estate for a long time. There are proven methods and systems that work. Mm. Do what the best do. Don't try to create something. There's no reason to remake the trap.
Yeah.
People around this country and around this world are doing things that work. And when I study the top ones, they're all doing the same things.
Yeah.
It's the other people who aren't as successful trying to create something new. So what you got to do is, and I'm not saying it's the easy way. Right. A lot of times it's the hard way that works.
It's the simple but hard way.
Simple but hard.
Right.
It's not complicated,
mm-hmm.
but it's not easy. Mm-hmm. And there needs to be focus on the things that work, and then you have to do them every single day. This is not, I'm going to do this one time this week. I'll do it next week. No, you do the most important things, the power profit activities. You do them every single day. And consistency is the key to all success, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the great thing about real estate specifically is that it's easy to model success. And because, in the MLS and most market areas, you can easily deconstruct who, who the top agents are. You can determine how many units sold per year, what was their average sales price, what ratio, how many of them were on the buyer side, how many of them were on the seller side. And you have all this data. So, and then again, it's usually nothing particularly special about the processes. It's just the same simple stuff. It's just that I can attest the best agents in our company, in our market area, they're just a bit more highly disciplined than average.
That's it.
And
it's discipline. And there's a saying that successful people are doing something else. They're doing the things that are simple but necessary.
Yeah.
And what I find is people who want to be successful but aren't successful is because they're not willing to do those things. So the thing that successful people are doing different is the thing that unsuccessful people don't want to do.
Yes. I love that. And I'm curious, we all find ourselves getting off track at times mentally, as far as mental toughness goes that you described. Do you have any tricks that come to mind when you find yourself in these places, whether
Absolutely.
it's in business or on the course and you kick the tree limb? I mean, what's your inner self-talk that gets you back on track?
The first thing is you have to use your calendar effectively. You need to take all of these activities that we're talking about in whatever part, business, health, whatever, family, part of your life, and you need to put those most important things on your calendar at a specific time. But then you need to leave what I call white space on your calendar, which is enough time for other things. But when the things come up that are on your calendar that are important, you do them right then and there.
Yeah.
If it says go out and walk 4 miles, you go out and walk 4 miles. If it says you go to your child's sports game, you go to your child's sports game. It's the discipline, like you're talking about, of sticking to do what you say you're going to do. So many times people want something and they say they're going to do something, but then they don't do what they say they're going to do.
Right.
And what happens is that erodes trust in yourself. And when you can't trust yourself, it's hard to trust a process or anyone else.
Right.
So don't erode trust in yourself. It's a very simple process. Know what you need to do, put it on your calendar, and then surrender to that.
Right.
Surrender meaning trust that that's going to work.
Yeah. I love that, what it basically comes down to is self-respect, that you respect yourself enough to follow through with what you decided that you were going to do. And so whenever we're having this conversation, what it ultimately comes down to is a vision, because you don't know what to put in your calendar if you don't have a vision of what it is that you're trying to achieve or what your life will look like once you've experienced the success that you're envisioning for yourself. So, maybe, I don't know if there's anything that comes to mind about, how should somebody, if they're newer in their career, how would you go about creating a vision for your business or seeing what could be possible in your life?
Absolutely. And, I love to sit down with people and do this exercise with them. It only takes 15 or 20 minutes and to kind of get that started. But know what you want your life to look like. You don't have to know what it's going to look like in 20 years. You don't have to know what it's going to look like in 2 years. Where do you want your life to look in 6 months? So we actually call this the backward thinking exercise. But if you know where your life is today and you know where you want to be in 6 months, then what we can do is we can say, here's where I am today in everything that my life has. And here's where I want all of those things to be in 6 months. That allows us to at least see ourselves in a better position than we are now. But it's just like cooking anything too. I mean, anytime, let's just say you're going to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Before you ever get the jelly out of the fridge or the peanut butter out of the pantry, your mind already sees a sandwich that's been made on the counter. Because otherwise, you wouldn't know what to go get to do it.
Right.
So people have vision. They just need to tap into it and know. But I think here's the problem, Robert. Most people don't know where they want to be in 6 months.
Right.
And I would say to those people, you want to be better off than you are today.
Yes.
So let's create a path to where you're better off today than you are, or you're better off in 6 months than you are today.
Right.
And we can put together that so quick just by talking and answering some questions about how you want to see your life differently.
That's all that it comes down to. I think that's fantastic. And, when you state that you just want to be, better than you are today, I think that people, where they kind of get into this vicious cycle of just not having any direction or losing faith in themselves, is when they're failing to make progress. Mm-hmm. That people, I think it's an innate human need that you have to make progress in order to be feeling fulfillment of any kind. And so it could be very small, very incremental progress. You don't have to radically transform your entire life in an unreasonably short amount of time. You just need to make a little bit of progress. And so, I think that for some licensees, because, unfortunately there is a high attrition rate in the real estate field, mm-hmm. they get the real estate license and maybe they overestimate what could be accomplished in their career in real mm-hmm. estate in the short term, which is very common. People generally do that. They'll overestimate what's possible, mm-hmm. but they underestimate what's possible in the long term. But,
Correct.
Maybe if somebody gets licensed and then they fail to make progress for 6 months or so, and then they start to lose confidence in themselves, and, they don't have enough self-respect to go do mm-hmm. the things that they know they need to do. And then it just becomes this vicious, downward spiral. So
Correct.
What would you say maybe to somebody that's in that type of a state now to try to get them back on track?
So it is all mindset. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we see things worse than they really are. Mm. And a lot of times we see things better than they actually are.
Yes.
So when I have found people and myself in situations where I feel like things aren't working out as well, mm-hmm. I kind of do a reassess, and I get with somebody who's been successful at something. And I say, okay, let's talk about my expectations here. And let's figure out how those expectations can change so that my understanding of what I need to do can change as well. Mm-hmm. And I love to lean on people who've done it before, because we've all been at places that, we need help.
Right.
And I don't care to ask for help. I love to give help. Mm-hmm. But I've been able to meet with people or talk with people or study people who snap me out of a negative mindset. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, this is up to me, and I'm going to make this work. And I think something that is really important is you have to take responsibility for your life. Mm-hmm. Okay? Regardless of what's happened, we have to take responsibility for it. And we have to say, hey, I'm responsible for this and I can change it.
Yeah.
And when you truly believe that you can change it, and it may require the help of some others, mm-hmm. some friends, some mentors, some partners, when you can change it and you can see that you can change it.
Yes.
When you can see that you can change it, that's when really like the magic happens, mm-hmm. because you will gain a focus that allows you to do the things that will set you on a brighter path.
Yes. Love that. I'd like to just go back to the endurance mindset mm-hmm. again. So, is there like a little trick or a mantra or something that you're telling yourself the whole time that you're just trudging along for hours and hours and hours and things are getting hard? And
there is.
I'd love to learn more about that.
We can talk about one of them here. Champions are made in solitude. Mm. So mm-hmm. when I'm out there by myself, either during training or during a race, champions are made in solitude.
So you're just telling yourself that over and over again? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I heard someone else, I can't recall the source right now, but someone said that you're celebrated in public for the things that you do in private.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. It's another way of saying something similar. But
absolutely. I mean, and I found this common theme too. When you want to do good and you want to push yourself, you have to think that you're a badass. Mm-hmm. You have to have the confidence, whether you're a top business person or a top athlete, you have to have the confidence to know that you can do this.
Yes.
And I think what experience shows us is that we can. So I went from this 52-mile race as my first endurance run, and then I did a 57-mile race with 17,000 feet of vertical gain.
Wow.
But I was way more nervous in the first one because I wasn't sure if I could do it. Mm-hmm. So I had to talk to myself that whole way. When I showed up for the start line of the harder race, I knew I was going to finish. There was not a doubt in my mind I was going to finish.
Right.
Wasn't easy. There were parts of it that really sucked. But I knew I was going to finish.
Right.
Because I had that experience from the first one and pushing myself through pain and discomfort and all of this. Obviously your mind goes in all these places, but you just say, hey, I'm not negotiating with myself. Mm-hmm. I signed up for this to finish. I'm not negotiating with myself.
Yes.
Because your mind will find every reason in the world to stop.
That is for sure.
Just like in business.
Right.
It will find everything in the world to do today when you know you need to be doing something important. Mm-hmm. Everybody's coming to ask you to go to lunch today. No, you can't go to lunch today. You have something important to do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be a reason not to do what you need to do.
Yeah. Well, that is for sure. Well, we could keep this conversation going all afternoon, and I know that a lot of our audience will find this very inspirational. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that we haven't covered that comes to mind that you'd like to talk a little bit more about?
I would just say find people in your life who you can create win-wins with. Mm-hmm. Find people where both of you can win, both of you can support each other. And do this with a lot of people. There are people out there that understand win-win. It's not a zero-sum game where one person wins and one person loses. And if you're in relationships like that of any kind, those will be short-lived. That's just not, or they will be unhappy, because that's not how it's supposed to go. It's supposed to be a relationship as an exchange of value.
It is.
And the closer that value can be to 50-50, both people, the better that relationship's going to be. Mm-hmm. So I would just say find people that you can win with.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, if someone was watching or listening to this conversation and they say, geez, there was a lot of great things that really spoke to me. And, when you say, you got to do these simple things and processes or whatnot, we didn't really talk a lot about specifics. Mm-hmm. But if they wanted to reach out to you and maybe get some further ideas or inspiration, what's a great way for people to
absolutely.
Contact you?
I would say call or text or email. I'll just give out my cell phone number here, 865-919-4300. Just text me and introduce yourself, and we can get together either on a call, a Zoom, or an in-person meeting. I love meeting new people. I believe there's a lot of power in that. It energizes me to meet new people and hear people's aspirations. And then obviously you can look me up and online and get my email address or however, but a call or a text will be great.
Perfect. Well, I've found this conversation to be very inspirational. I always do when we talk. It definitely challenges me because in life sometimes we're in balance. We can't be firing on all cylinders in every aspect of your life. And so there's times I feel like I'm good with family, I'm good with my career. Mm-hmm. Definitely need a little bit of work in the physical side, and it always challenges me whenever I talk to you. So we'll have to start finding the time. I guess I gotta put a marathon in the calendar.
Heck yeah, we can definitely do that.
But I appreciate you, buddy. I appreciate you spending some time to share your message with us here today, and look forward to talking again soon.
I love doing it, Robert. Thank you for having me.
Of course.